Hi, and welcome to our coven. I'm Sage.
And I'm Karis, and this is
the Cousin Coven podcast. We're cousins, witches, and feminists, and we have some thoughts.
In fact, we have a lot of thoughts, and we want to share them with you.
On today's episode, we're going to talk about aliens, Tektites, Rebel Witch by Kelly Ann Maddox, and what exactly makes a witch a witch.
Please remember that everything we say is our own personal opinion, and while they might not resonate with you, that's okay. We are all on our own journeys. Today, we are going to talk about UFOs because they've been in the news lately. Sage, do you believe in aliens?
In short answer, yes, because it's hard to I think it's kind of like selfish and egocentric to think that we are the only ones in existence. That makes no sense.
That's exactly how I feel. I think that to even suggest that humans are the only beings in the entire universe, it's pretty insane. Now, do I think that any of them have come to Earth? I'm not so sure about that. I mean, this place is a bit of a shit show, so I don't think I'd want to visit Earth. But is it possible that they've come here to do research? Sure. Maybe humans have captured some of them? Sure, because we pretty much destroy everything we touch. So, absolutely, there's a chance that it's true. Do you think that they've actually seen anything credible?
That's hard to answer because I don't know if we would really know, like if we would be told that there was anything that was seen. But I think yes, but maybe it's just not advertised as such. Have you ever seen the show, The Ancient Aliens?
So I've heard of it, but I've never actually watched it.
So I would say just maybe watch a couple episodes. After a while, they seem to kind of all be pretty much the same. But the gist is that maybe we ourselves came from beings from somewhere else, or that maybe they have come to help us do things throughout history. Building the pyramids, for example. You know, we've wondered for years, how was this possible? How did humans do this? How were they able to get these massive stones from one place over here to way over here? And it's just even trying to replicate that. You know, people have not been successful in modern times trying to replicate, to move these massive stones. So that kind of makes you wonder, did we have some help somewhere along the way?
So I read an article on CNN after kind of all of this broke, and Sean Kirkpatrick, director at the Pentagon, emphasized that there was no evidence of extraterrestrial life and that his office found no credible evidence of objects that defy the known laws of physics. But in the same article, David Grush, a former Air Force intelligence officer, claimed that the US government not only has UAPs, which is what they're calling them, in its possession, but also the remains of allegedly non-human pilots of aircraft. However, when he was pressed, he made it clear that this is what he's been told by others and didn't have any firsthand knowledge. That's not something I witnessed myself, he said. I mean, I think that there are actually a lot of really respected people who've made these claims, and the fact that the government really isn't transparent, like you said, and they're kind of a bit cagey, that makes me feel like maybe there actually are some credible sightings. I mean, maybe they're not alien life forms, but they're something.
So then maybe that takes us back to our original question of, do you believe other beings exist?
I mean, I know that a lot of people in the witchy community are really into like star seeds. While the ideal is like generally appealing and I think kind of plausible, it's not really part of my belief system, I guess. It's not really something I contemplate.
Well, maybe tell the listeners a little bit more about what that is.
So I believe in reincarnation, but I don't really think I've contemplated enough to think that that means that, you know, I'm this star seed, this alien from another galaxy, another plane. But I mean, it's possible. I think I haven't really dug deep into it enough that I would be able to make a firm stance.
That's interesting.
What about you? Any other thoughts that you have about this?
I think this could be a many, many hours long conversation. It is interesting. I think it's something that we're always going to wonder about and not necessarily have an answer. There is some sort of connection to us and the outside universe. That's kind of what I feel is like the source in essence of everything is just like the energy of the universe. I feel like we're drawn to things that are outside of just the mundane or terrestrial on Earth. We're definitely drawn to the stars, and there has to be a reason why.
Yeah, I definitely vibe with that too. I mean, I can say that personally, I am very drawn to like if my aesthetic, if you will, is really that like galaxy spatial vibe. Like I love that. I love the colors. I think it's so beautiful, and I'm drawn to like, I don't know if you've seen the pictures from the, what's the name of the
Is it the James Webb telescope?
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the pictures from that, but like those to me are the most breathtaking images. Like I think art, human made art is really pretty, but stuff like that is just the most gorgeous. And so for me, like I've always been drawn to that, but it's kind of interesting that I've never been drawn to like contemplate what other life lies out there. Like it just has never really been on my radar.
And two, I mean, I sometimes think as well, I'm like, well, if there is people somewhere else, are they wondering, like, where are they on the evolutionary timeline? And are they wondering if there's anybody else? Like, are they wondering about us? So say somebody did come here from another planet or somewhere else in the universe. Are they, like, what are their intentions? How similar are we? How different are we? I would think in general, probably you have to also assume there's more than one kind of whatever there is. So, here we have an atmosphere, we breathe oxygen. Maybe, somewhere else, maybe they just float around in the air and, I don't know, breathe methane or something. like who knows? But I would think that they would have, maybe some have good intentions, maybe some don't have good intentions. It's kind of scary in the thought that if there is a group of beings that are able to come here, that have the, technology and knowledge and everything to make it here, if they were here for nefarious reasons, there would be nothing we could do anyway, because they would be so far advanced than us.
Well, I mean, it's just like how now there are people out there who are starving or, don't have the money to pay their bills and can't get help or whatever. And like the government isn't helping and there's literally nothing they can do about it. So it's always power. It's always whoever's in power and like what their intentions are. And if they have the power and we don't, then yeah. I mean, it can be scary, but everything can be scary.
And then too, I wonder, like, I've heard, some people be like, oh, well, if they're so advanced, then how come they keep crashing here? Or we hear about, like, there keeps being crashes. Like, well, maybe we could think about that in a few ways. Like, maybe wherever they come from, they're not used to gravity or, like, atmosphere like we have. Like, maybe that is, they don't have to figure out the, I don't know, propulsion or all kind of stuff based on Earth because they haven't encountered Earth.
Right.
Or then, have you heard it suggested that, oh, well, maybe the government's shooting them down and that's how they're crashing?
I have. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like us.
It does sound like us, but I wonder, is it plausible, really? Like, I don't know. I would just think anything that is so advanced to be able to make it here would probably have defenses. But maybe they are impenetrable to other things that they encounter. I don't know. There's just so many variables.
I mean, that's true. Well, and at the same time, like it's definitely possible. I think even more plausible to me that it isn't extraterrestrial life that's made it here, but like we have things that we've sent off into space,
like drones and stuff.
Yeah. So in my thought process, it's like, oh, maybe they are sending out their technology to like do reconnaissance or whatever, and that is what we're finding and shooting down,
Yeah, that makes sense too. There's just I think there's a lot of unknowns that we won't know. That's just kind of, well, what do you believe on this, or what's your stance on this? And everybody's can be different, and we'll never know. who's right or who's wrong unless some big event happens that everybody would be witness to.
Like Independence Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I personally think that maybe that's part of why I don't really, dig into what I think about aliens or extraterrestrial life, because I feel like I am the kind of person who needs to decide what I believe on a topic and then like have that stance, like be able to back up why I believe that. And in this case, I feel like I don't think I could. And so I'm not rushing to like figure out what it is that I believe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, more so on like, well, we're not going to know for sure, so how much does it matter, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it like this. Even if we did have confirmation, definitive confirmation that was like everybody was informed about, there was maybe like some broadcast, like a disclosure broadcast or something.
Yeah.
Even still, what would that change? We're still going to have to go to work every day. Still going to have to be about the money. Like everybody's going to be like, got to have money to pay the bills. You're still going to have to make your house payment. Unless Earth blows up or something. I mean, I don't know how much it would change our daily life.
Right? Did you see any of the memes that were floating around when this initially came to be like a congressional hearing? There were a bunch of memes with like millennials and Gen Z people saying, okay, but like, can you take care of my student loan debt?
Right.
Like, nobody really cared that there might actually be aliens. They're just like, hey, that's cool, but like, can you help me like pay my bills? Can you work on the interest rate? Like,
for real though.
Yeah, no, for real. Our 2-minute book recommendation today is for Rebel Witch by Kellyanne Maddox. You probably know Kellyanne from YouTube, and if you don't, I highly suggest that you check her out. She is a witch and a tarot reader and an absolute gem of a person. I've had a number of tarot readings done by her, and she's just wonderful. But when she announced that she was writing a book, I knew I was going to love it, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. So here's a blurb from Amazon Summary. A truly contemporary talk on how to be a witch. Rebel Witch is an anecdote to the cookie-cutter witchcraft agenda that gives a new perspective on the craft, asking each reader to create a powerful, personalized practice that taps into the current mood of female empowerment and spiritual rebellion. Rebel Witch reminds witches of the wondrous opportunity to jump into experimentation and invent something wild and individual, a practice shaped by their individual personality and life journey, rather than allowing themselves to be spoon-fed. It challenges witches to design a nurturing practice that is truly theirs. So why should you read it? If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a person who hates gatekeeping, just like we do. This book helps you to look at everything and all of the quote-unquote rules of witchcraft from a different perspective. It asks you to challenge what you hear and turn things on their head. Do you have a book that you love? Make it your sacred text. Have a rock god that you deify? Work with them and incorporate their music into your rituals. Have a day that you feel is really significant to you? Add it to your wheel of the year. It's also okay not to observe Sabbaths that you just don't resonate with. You make the rules. This book not only explains some of the basics of witchcraft, so it's great for beginners, but it also invites seasoned witches to examine their craft and see how they can make it more personal and sacred to them. Everyone's different. Your life, your path, your journey, your personality. So why should your craft be cookie cutter? So today we're going to be talking about what makes a witch and spiritual gatekeeping. The first thing is, how does one become a real witch?
So, Karis, what do you think?
I mean, in my opinion and in my practice, I feel that anyone can be a witch. Just like anybody can be a lawyer, a doctor, an astronomer. You study the thing, you practice the thing, you are the thing. There isn't this need for an initiation. And I mean, I did a dedication ceremony myself, but that's not something that every witch has to do to be legitimate. Witchcraft does not come with rules. I mean, if we wanted that, We'd all go to church. It doesn't have this like set way that you have to practice. You're guided by your own personal morals, ethics, ideals. Witchcraft is not a religion. It's like meditation. It's a practice that you incorporate into your life. And this bullshit about having to be done in a certain way, or that you have to be chosen, or you have to have a family lineage, it's so fucking dumb. Do you have to meditate a certain way for it to count? Like, no, you don't. You study, you practice, you are. Period. What about you? What do you think?
Okay, yeah, I can dig it. I kind of think more generalized, I guess, than specific. Like, I just think everybody already has this, like, life force, universal source within them. And I think if you want to acknowledge that and you want to call yourself certain things, then that's what you are. I don't think there has to be any kind of formality. I don't think there has to be any kind of initiation. I think if that's something that you want to dive more into, I think it's already within you. Just like when we were talking about the previous topic with how I was saying, I feel like we all have connection to the universe anyway. I don't know if was it Carl Sagan who said like we're all made of star stuff. So it's like we have the same stuff inside of us that is out in all of the universe. So I just feel, maybe I'm a little more like hippie about it, but I just feel like it's something that's already within you, within everybody, if it's something that you want to tap into or something you want to ignore.
I agree with that completely. I think that it has to do, like, everybody has the ability within them. Everyone has an intuition. Everyone has that small voice that they can either ignore or listen to. But I mean, I think what you do makes you who you are. So, like, if you're, doing spells, or you're, calling yourself a witch, like, if you're doing the things that you're doing with this intention of being a witch, like, you are a witch. It doesn't take some special circumstances, some special thing to make you what you are. Because, again, like you said, we all have those things inside of us. So if we choose to bring them to the forefront, if we choose to do the things that point to the fact that we want to be witches, then we're witches, period.
Yeah, I think it's all about like using what's already there, looking to maybe like books and other people and think like, doing the study, like you said, looking to what other people have done and seeing if that's something you want to incorporate with what you feel. The main thing for me, again, I feel it more like in a general kind of term, which is almost a little bit hard for me to put into words.
Sure.
But, like if you're working with energy, if you're manifesting, if you are, focusing intention, really essentially that I think that's what everything comes down to. Like all the other things that, spells or ritual, meditation, any of those other things you do are really just like taking the energy that is in you, is in the universe, is around you, and focusing that onto something.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say too, like, I think it's dangerous, the amount of gatekeeping, especially within the community. Like, we don't need that. I feel like, why would something that is so grounded in like the love of the earth, and we are all from the earth, we are all from the source, why would that be something that we'd want to keep people out of? And I mean, I understand that there are different belief systems that come into play when we're talking about witchcraft, because again, witchcraft, not a religion. But I mean, the thought process behind witchcraft to me just signals so much of like this inclusive spirit. And when I see things like, oh, if you're gay you can't be a witch, if you're a man you can't be a witch, it like all of these different,
or if you're transgender you don't have a space.
Right. All of these different ways to keep people out of something that is meant to be a celebration of like who we are and the fact that we all come from the same place just doesn't, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree with that.
So in that same vein, do you think that some witchcraft practices are more legitimate than others?
I mean, I think they probably think they're more legitimate than others, but I don't know that I would say they are.
Right.
I think even taking that a step further, I think every spiritual practice or religious practice has some merit. As long as it's not, I don't know the word, I don't want to say doing bad things. As long as it's not causing, pain to someone or issues with something, I think they all have merit. So do I think one is superior than the other in that regard? No. Do I think that certain practices within witchcraft or spirituality are above another? No. I think because just by the nature that everyone is so individualized, whether you are practicing alone or with other people, there's always going to be stuff that, maybe you don't necessarily agree on. So with such variety, I wouldn't even think there would be a way to be like, oh, this is the more legitimate or correct or superior or whatever. I think probably people who are, think like it takes a witch to make a witch, or more like in the initiations and levels and all of this, I am 100% sure that they believe they are more legitimate.
I agree with that completely. Witchcraft is personal. It's a personal practice. It's a personal journey. It's important to do, think, believe what fits best with you and resonates the most with you. And I have always said that I think we obviously think we're right, because if we didn't think we were right, we would choose another way to believe. Obviously, I think that the way that I think is right, and I think it's right for me, and I think that I'm on my own journey.
I think that's the thing. It's not saying it's right in general, it's saying it's right for you. So what is right for you?
Exactly. And I don't want to put what I believe. For instance, my husband is agnostic, my girlfriend is an atheist, and I don't ever put my beliefs or my thoughts or anything on them. I keep that for myself. And if they want me to do a tarot reading for them, even if they don't necessarily believe in it, I'd say that since I started practicing tarot, they both have seen my readings that I've done for them like play out, and so they've kind of come to that a little bit more. But like, as long as they respect that, hey, this is my time for doing spellcraft, or this is my time for ritual, and like this is important to me, as long as they respect that, then like that's totally fine. They can think whatever they want. And as long as I respect the fact that they, don't believe, or, in my girlfriend's case, like she just doesn't believe that there's anything else. As long as I respect that and that's what's best for her, then that's fine. And I feel like if everybody was just that way, that things would be so much better.
True story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like I'm cool with like whatever you believe. You can believe in
like pray to the toaster if you want. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. As long as the toaster isn't like coming and taking me out of the bed in the middle of the night because I'm bisexual, like cool. Or because I'm a witch, like burning me on the front lawn. As long as you're not doing that, like do whatever you want to do, what makes you happy, what you feel is right. You can believe it. I don't actually care if you shout about it from the rooftops, but like don't let it impact my life or like harm other people.
Yeah, I think we could definitely go on about that fact for a long time. Like how much has religions and really, I know I said it before, but ethnocentrism, like how much has that affected the history of humankind?
Yes, absolutely.
Like, and we still haven't learned.
I don't know that we ever will. I guess that it's nice to see people, especially younger generations today, are at least more tolerable of differences in people. But like you said, we still have a way to go.
Yeah.
Another question that I have here is like, what are some common criteria or markers of authenticity that gatekeepers use to judge someone's witchcraft practice or knowledge? I know that I've heard like a ton of like gatekeeping arguments.
For sure.
It takes a witch to make a witch, like you said. You have to study for a year and a day to call yourself a witch. You have to follow a certain tradition. You have to belong to a coven. You have to be born a witch. Just a lot of stupid ideas put in place by a lot of people who really want to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
Probably straight white men. I'm looking at you, Raymond Buckland.
Yeah, I think we've already like hit on that a bit that, like, you know, what makes one more authentic than the other. I think it's just the person who's saying it and the people who they're around.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Just because you think you're superior doesn't mean that I think you're superior to me. Like, I don't know. I think that's about everything in life.
And I think that a lot of people, like, I mean, I think that it's all about that power dynamic. And like you said, for everything in life, it's all about, like, oh, I'm in power and I want to keep others down. And it sucks that it happens
The
with
haves and the haves not.
Right. It sucks that it happens within the witchcraft community, but it absolutely does. Like, that leads us right into the next thing. What are some common ways that gatekeeping discourages individuals who are new to witchcraft? This one gets me mad.
All right, well, go ahead.
I mean, I think it makes real, you know, witches feel like imposters, that's fucking dumb. That's dumb. It causes witches to doubt who they are. It causes them to doubt their personal power, and that can influence their magic, really, and the outcomes of it. I think that people who are interested in the craft will leave because they don't feel accepted or like they're part of the community. I mean, again, I've seen arguments that queer people shouldn't be witches. I've seen arguments that men shouldn't be witches. I think that's the most ridiculous thing. People can feel shame for, you know, how they're practicing. I think especially today with this kind of social media, Instagram, witchcraft aesthetic, I think that people feel like they're not good enough. And that's, I mean, now personally, I think it's great that you can go online and get like really great ideas about how you want, you know, things you want on your altar, or spellcraft ideas, or tools that you'd like to have in your craft. But I think at the same time, that's such a double-edged sword, because you can feel like, well, what I have isn't good enough. What I have doesn't make my practice, you know, good enough. But like, no person's practice is going to look exactly like anybody else's. Mine doesn't look like yours. Yours doesn't look like, you know, Joe Schmo down the street.
Well, and to add something in here, I know we talked about this briefly before, but having like a mental altar that doesn't cost you anything. So, like, you don't have to spend tons of money to have all these physical things. Sure. I mean, if you can, and that's what you want to do it. But you shouldn't feel like if you don't have the money to spend on physical items,
or if you're in the broom closet.
Yeah, like, you don't have to have all these overtly physical items if that's not within your means. So I guess I'm putting that out there too, because I don't like how some things, even like, you know, you said people online, or even certain like books and things are like, okay, you have to have, you know, these items, this is what you're doing with them, spin in a circle 3 times or whatever. Like, I mean, yes, it's good to have these things that can help you hold and direct your energy and intentions and things, but if you don't have them, you still have your mind.
Yeah, and 100%, like, witchcraft at its core is your energy and your intent. You're not out of the broom closet. You don't even have a candle to light. Your intention, your energy, and your focus and will is what makes you a witch. I mean, and I also feel like your practice is just as individual as your fingerprint. Every person's journey is different. Everybody's practice looks different. And it's important to remember that, especially if you're scrolling through Instagram and you see all these like cool looking altar spaces and you're like, oh, but mine is just like a candle and a picture. Like, why can't I have all this cool stuff? You don't need all the cool stuff.
Agreed.
I'm not saying it's bad to have all that stuff.
Yeah, like good or bad, either way.
Good or bad. Yeah, everybody is just individual, and you're in this moment. Like, you don't have to start reading tarot and have 50 decks. Calling myself out a little bit there. But you can, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you can have one deck your entire practice because that deck works for you, and that's all you need. And for me personally, like, I have tons of decks. I enjoy using the different ones. I try to use them, you know, fairly interchangeably, but I definitely have decks I prefer, or decks I use most of the time, and they work for every single thing. And so if I was on, if I was away and I only could bring one deck, I'd be fine. But it is the same. All of witchcraft is, you have what you have at this point in time, and maybe later on down the line you do want to have all the tools. You want to pay $100 for a giant cauldron,
right? But it's not necessary, and you definitely don't have to do that to get started, or
even ever.
Yeah, or call yourself whatever you want to be called.
Yeah, absolutely. In your opinion, should gatekeeping tendencies be stronger in traditional witchcraft practices than in more modern eclectic approaches?
No. I mean, I guess I don't, but like, it would have to do more, I think, with the people that you're around. So if you are around a community of people who are more quote unquote traditional, then they may view things in a certain way. And if you are wanting to join that, then you all as a group would think that you need to have more rules and steps and phases in your practice as a group. So I don't think it's necessary in general. There's so much variability with what everybody believes or how they practice that I feel that, if you're coming together with other people, you're kind of making an agreement of like, this is how we're going to do things in this space together. I don't know if traditional people in traditional practice also are thinking that they're just doing the same thing the same way all the time. But I feel for me, like if I'm, in some kind of practice with somebody else where we have agreement of this is how we're doing things here together, and then how I do things separately in my own practice is how I do them.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there should be quote unquote gatekeeping. I won't even call it gatekeeping. I'll say I think that there should be rules. So if you want to follow a certain tradition, then you should adhere to it. You should follow the rules.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course.
I mean, otherwise, I think choose to be your own kind of witch. There's nothing wrong with being an eclectic witch. The book recommendation that I suggested today, Rebel Witch, is very much like that. You pick and you choose what you want to follow, what makes sense, what aligns with you. So I think that, being an eclectic witch does not mean that you have to be alone. You don't have to be in a coven. But like you said, if you are in a coven, I think you have to follow whatever rules are set out that you've agreed on in the community. I mean, you could find others who agree with you generally on big picture things, and you can make a coven and you can have community with them. Also, there's nothing wrong with being a solo practitioner. You do not need a coven to be a witch. But, if you're going to be a part of a specific sect, a specific tradition, then I think you have to kind of accept the rules that come with that and follow the guidelines that they set. But if you're not interested in that, don't join them. It doesn't make you less of a witch.
Yes. So if I didn't agree or have the same stance as someone, I just would not join to that practice. Okay, I don't believe in Catholicism, so I'm not trying to join a Catholic church. They have their own rules. They have their own people that they admit, their own practices. You have to do the training and whatnot, and I'm not trying to do that, so I'm not joining them.
Exactly. How do you think witches can challenge and dismantle gatekeeping within our community? I mean, I think the best way to do that is to not judge the way others practice, and also not to give unsolicited advice. Just because you follow the threefold rule doesn't mean they have to. Just because you came to the craft by way of mentor doesn't mean that they need one to be legitimate. Just because you didn't call yourself a witch until you'd study for a year and a day doesn't mean that they're required to wait to do so. I think gatekeeping just turns people away from witchcraft, and I don't think that there's a place here for that.
So I think everything that I think on the topic can kind of be summed up by that video of, you've probably seen it, everybody's probably seen it, the little girl who's buckling herself up, and the dad asks her if she wants help, and she says no, and he's like, what do you want me to do? And she says, you worry about yourself. So I think that has a lot, just the wisdom of the child will help with a lot of things in life. You worry about yourself. If you don't, to challenge and dismantle, I think just don't participate in that way of thinking. And frankly, I'm going to say, ignore it. Like, I'm sorry. That's how you want to do. You do you worry about yourself. I'm going to go over here, do what I'm doing. If you don't like it, you worry about yourself.
Well, I also think things like podcasts like this, where we're talking, where we're saying, telling people that you can be accepted for who you are and how you practice and you have a place in this community. I think things like this are important. I think putting out information to battle disinformation and battle gatekeeping, I think that's got a place. And I feel like that is something that we can do to dismantle the gatekeeping and the bullshit in the community.
True story. The crystal of the podcast today is Tektites, specifically Moldavite. Though this is not technically a quote-unquote crystal, it is more closely related to glass. It's formed from a meteorite that impacts with Earth, and that heat and impact is what forms the Tektite. And these could be in a variety of colors. We're going to be talking about Moldavite today that is usually green. It's like a green, glassy looking appearance. It can have some like grooves or maybe like bubble looking spots. If we were thinking of another crystal that would be closely related, you could think maybe obsidian, which would be also like a type of glass. They don't have the same composition, but they are similar in that way. Tektites, specifically Moldavites, can be used for helping you to have more open consciousness, connecting with cosmic energies. It's very useful in meditation for clairvoyance, your intuition. It can help us with getting rid of or healing old wounds. Also, just as a note, there are a lot of fake Moldavite, fake other crystals going around. Anytime there's more of a demand for something, there can be more fake objects in circulation. So more so just think of it as using for like dreaming, consciousness, getting into perspective, helping with old wounds. Some people say that you don't need to cleanse the stone, quote unquote stone, but you can use whatever way that you prefer to cleanse. Incense. I choose to do most with like satin spar or selenite, but that's up to you. Moldavite should be water safe. It is relatively hard on the Mohs scale, so it should be fine to be in water if that's how you choose to cleanse. I have a small piece of the stone. Some people are more sensitive to the feeling of crystals than in stones and items and things in general, but I can feel this one a little bit, and I personally would not want it in jewelry on me because the feeling it's so hard to put into words. For me, I would not want this feeling with me all the time. It's an odd feeling. I think you have to be in the right space to have this stone, to use this stone. Meditation is perfect. Meditation, I think it would be the perfect time to use Moldavite, especially if you're looking for, higher conscious thinking, intuition, things like that. But I personally would not wear the stone or have it in jewelry or anything with me all the time. I feel like it leaves you too open, if that makes sense.
Now we're going to do a tarot reading for the collective. We're going to try and do this at the end of every podcast episode. And we're going to ask a couple of things. And this is going to be the same set of questions that we ask every time. How can we best show up as our authentic selves in the coming weeks? Where can we best direct our energy in the coming weeks? And what do we need to create space for in the coming weeks? So for the first question, how can we best show up as our authentic selves in the coming weeks? We got the Ace of Discs. The Ace of Discs is about new opportunities, And this gives us this idea that maybe some opportunities are going to present themselves where we can show up fully and authentically. And we really need to step into who we are, own our witchhood, own who we are and what that means. The next question is, where can we best direct our energy? And we got the sun. And the sun is all about finding joy and happiness. So in the next couple of weeks, just take time and really enjoy the things that you're doing in your life. Really enjoy the opportunities and the circumstances that are around you. And if there's a time for play or fun, take it. Take that time. And finally, what do we need to create space for in the coming weeks? And I pulled the Six of Swords for this one. So for the Six of Swords, that is moving from the old into the new. It's literally creating space. It's moving on. So we need to let go some of the stuff that we've been holding on, our past baggage, our pain, and trade that in for a journey forward. Finding new things to fill up our lives and to heal from past traumas and really leave the past where it belongs, behind us. So altogether, I think this is, looking like a good couple of weeks for everybody. We're going to get some new opportunities. We're going to have chances to have fun and feel joy. And we're going to have the opportunity to move on from past pain and hurt and find ourselves in new and more lush surroundings with our friends, our family, and just our life experiences.
Thanks for listening to the Cousin Coven podcast, available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Check out future episodes to conjure up conversation and weave witchcraft into your day.
Find us online at thecousincoven.com.
You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at The Cousin Coven Podcast.
Love yourself and love each other.
Blessed be.